Hey everybody, it's Candy, aka Brown Eyed Girl 69. How y'all doing? Well, I've been thinking about making this video for the last day or so, since the last time I made my last video talking about Las Vegas. In my last video, I basically ended saying that Daryl's cousin Happy had bought us both a ticket to go to Tucson. So we had already made prior arrangements and they knew what time that the bus was going to be pulling in. So my friend, and her name was Mama Ann, and her friends that she'd went down there to live with, I think one was named Robert. And honestly, I can't remember the other lady's name. Maybe it was Rachel or something. Something similar to that. They had a home and they had a RV that didn't run but was livable. They had something else too, maybe another kind of motor home. And then Anne, she just liked living in her tent. So she was set up in the yard somewhere with her tent. Anyway, they picked us up, brought us out to their place. They did have facilities inside the house, even though Daryl and I wasn't like living in the actual house. There was a bus stop not too far, and they did have a car if we needed to get to town or anything like that. But for the most part, we was pretty much on our own. There was a library in the area, and Daryl wanted to utilize that as much as we could. So we went to this little library to get on the computer to try to get Daryl's name out there however we could. And also look for people that might have postings for needing a guitarist in the local area. So, however it worked out, this guy contacted Daryl and asked Daryl if he wanted to be his guitarist. And that he already had gigs set up and he basically already had a band put together. But the other guitarist was having to leave and that they were looking to replace him. So he brought Daryl in. Daryl explained the situation to him, I guess. Basically they had a couple of fun conversations. And basically Daryl told me when we leave here for Mama Ann and the other people's place, we won't be coming back. Okay, I didn't really understand, but when we went to this guy's house, he knew we were coming for the weekend. And because Daryl really wanted to, jam with the guy. And they did jam together. We hung out at this guy's house all weekend, and I guess Daryl explained to him the situation, what was going on. Well, this guy, he was the drummer. His name was Wade. Um, he had an apartment. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment that he had obtained and did live there for a short period of time. But the situation changed and he moved back into his home that he was in then. But he still had this apartment on paper, even though he wasn't living there. And he basically told me and Daryl that we could live there for a couple months. But that his daughter was turning 18 in December and she would be coming back to Tucson from wherever she was currently at. and that he would need to give her the apartment. So Daryl and I are like, okay, cool. That gives us a couple months. So Daryl was going to be getting money from the gigs playing in this guy's band. And I was out there beating the streets trying to find a job so that Daryl and I could possibly get our own apartment in that little apartment complex in 2 months, you know? How hard was it going to be? Universe had other plans. So the whole entire time we were there and lived there in an apartment and was inside, we didn't have no rent to pay. We still had to pay for our food. We still had to, um, cover our own costs, our own expenses as far as like getting somewhere on a bus or getting food or our tobacco, whatever it was that we needed, you know. And that was the hard part. Trying to budget what money we did have and when we got it or whatever. So basically, we were there in Tucson, basically living a normal life. I did, like I said, I beat the streets trying to find a job. I walked to the local library, which was about a mile away, a lot to utilize their internet until I realized that I could get on internet there at the apartment through my phone, free Wi-Fi. Um, but we basically made plans to leave Tucson and come back to Oklahoma for Christmas of 2013. Because we had left Oklahoma in February of 2012. And yeah, we left Oklahoma in February 2012 and had not been back to Oklahoma since then. And here we were in Arizona, December 2013. We were going to have to basically be out of the apartment. I think it was by December 18th or something like that. We had to be out of the apartment. And Wade did take us to wherever we wanted to go. So um, when we left the apartment, we knew we were going to go to the most furthest eastern side of Tucson to catch a lift on the highway. And I did make a prior video to that, and I'll leave it linked below. Um, Talking about mine and Daryl's hitchhiking experience. The first time we hitchhiked from Tucson back to Oklahoma. I don't know, did I talk about that one? Maybe I haven't talked about that one. Hang on a second. Okay, I just checked it out and I have not given you this discussion, so I guess it's a good thing that I haven't talked about it yet. But this was mine and Daryl's first hitchhiking experience in Tucson. I might have talked about it in some other form. I feel like I have talked about it before, but I'll try to make a quick, short version of it. Basically, we knew we had to leave, so we had Wade drop us off at this place called the Triple T, which was a truck stop. And across the street from the Triple T was a Pilot truck stop. On the other side of the highway from these truck stops was nothing. Basically, just exit and on ramps. The Triple T was a truck stop. It had, I guess it had a restaurant of some sort. and a gift shop, convenience store type area. And it also had a hotel on top. They didn't have a whole lot of rooms. It wasn't like a huge hotel or anything, but they had a few rooms up on top. Um, and they were pretty cheap. They were like 35 bucks. Well, we didn't have this knowledge yet. Our main goal was to try to get a ride out of there. Now, the first night, we didn't have any success of trying to, score a ride. Um, oh God, what was it? And we slept out in the elements that night. And on Triple T property, but just off of their property, there was this like divider wall, and it was kind of close to the bus stop. It wasn't a shelter though, because there wasn't no benches or anything like that there. It was just like this divider wall and some cement. We decided to sleep next to it, and I'm going to tell you what, it was flipping cold. And even though Tucson's in Arizona, and while this was in December, it gets really cold at night. Um, so it was really cold that night, and we did not sleep very well at all. But the next day, we knew we needed to try to get a ride out of there, or make some money or something, because there was a storm coming that night, and we weren't going to be prepared to sleep outdoors in the rain. So we were either going to have to make enough money to get us a room for the night, or get a ride out of there. So I was standing at the pilot with a sign. I can't even remember what the sign read, but I just started singing. And I started singing holiday type songs and entertaining the truckers as they were coming off the highway, and the other people in their normal sized cars. People started throwing me money. Started throwing their windows down, handing me money. I was like, wow. I probably did this for about an hour. And I had change, I had bills in my pocket. Somebody had even given us like a gift card to some eatery or something like that. Anyway, after I did all that, I went back to where Daryl was, and he had went and inquired as to how much the room was, and we didn't know how much the room was. We just knew we needed to make some money, and as much money as we could. So I went back to Daryl, and I think I'd made like a total of like $60 or something like that. I was like, whoa. So I went back to Daryl, and he's like, well, hey, the room's 35 and you got 60. I'm like, yeah. He's like, cool, we can get a room. So we don't have to be in this weather tonight. So we went and got a room. And then we needed to eat. So we had a little bit of money left over from the room, obviously. So I went across the street to the Pilot. There was, I think, a Subway there. And got me and Daryl a foot long sandwich, some chips, whatever. Come back across the road. Come upstairs, Daryl's crashed. He was so exhausted, he just crashed. He had taken a shower. We both had taken showers, and then I went across the road. Well, I'd taken a shower, and then I went across the road to get food, and he was getting in the shower as I was leaving, so I guess he got out of the shower, and me relaxed him, so he just fell asleep. Next morning, get up, I call my daughter, let her know this, that, whatnot. But yeah, we got picked up. We went out and hitchhiked. We got a ride to Dallas, Texas, with one trucker, and he owned his own truck, so that's why he was able to pick us up. He drove us to Dallas. I had a friend that lived in Dallas that came out and picked us up where we were, and then we drove to Gainesville. My cousin drove down from Ardmore uh, to Gainesville and picked us up and brought us back up here to Purcell. In fact, I do believe I told this story in one of my other homeless discussions. Anyway, we got back here. We stayed here and through the holidays and stayed with my cousin for a little while, and then she made sure we got to San Antonio, Texas. That's the next city I'll talk about is San Antonio, Texas. Because basically we went from Boulder to Las Vegas to Tucson, back to Oklahoma once the holidays was over and the new year of 2014 had come in. Daryl and I's next stop was going to be San Antonio, Texas. But we stayed there from May of 2013 until December of 2013 was only like 7 months. So in 7 months' time, we had experienced Denver, Boulder, Las Vegas, and Tucson. And Tucson was the longest place that we'd stayed other than Denver and Boulder combined. San Antonio, Texas, we would stay there for 8 months. And that video, when I make that video, it's going to be a long video. I might have to break it into 2 parts. I don't know. It's a lot of information to share. Just really depends on what people want to hear, I suppose. But it seems like these stories of mine are starting to take off as far as like people's interest in hearing what I have to say about being homeless. Um, when I first went homeless, it was in May of 2013, so I was almost 44 years old. And 6 months after Daryl had died, I turned 49 years old. I say that we were homeless for 5 years, but in reality, it was about 4.5. But looking back on it all, at the time that we were homeless and at the time that we were in it, there were times that things seemed bleak to me. And I'm sure there were times that things seemed bleak to Daryl as well. But however it happened, Daryl and I was able to accomplish a lot of things. Even though it didn't seem like we were accomplishing a lot at that point in time that we were in it. But we were definitely accomplishing things for our future. Because everything is in the mind and everything starts in the mind. And I will say this about homelessness, and I'll probably end my video right after I discuss this. When we first hit the streets in Denver, Colorado, I was very angry. I was very angry at the establishment. I was very angry at our government. I was very angry at unawakened humans. I was just angry in general at where I was in life at that point in time. Considering where I came from, I guess. Um, Life was about to give me a lesson and teach me a few things along the way. Not only about myself, but about others. Morals, values, faith, hope, peace, joy, kindness, love, all those things. As well as the opposite flip side of the coin, feelings as well. But like I said, once I accepted the fact that this is where I was, that's when things did change. Daryl always held the balance for me and him the majority of the time, until I just started to accept things and let things go. Let it go and let it be. And to realize that every day that he and I awakened, it was another day for us to live and to try to better ourselves, however that was going to be, wherever we were. You know, we were going to do it together, side by side. And that's the one thing I can say about Daryl and I is we shared 13 years together. He never strayed once. Um, we were together for better, for worse, through thick and thin, for better, for worse, for richer and poorer, through sickness and in health. And we held true to that. He accepted my daughter as his own and held true to that. um, so being homeless with Daryl definitely was a life experience that I would never trade for anything. A portion of me going through those things that I went through in those 4.5 years that I lived that life is what I need to make me who I am today. It shaped me, it helped mold me into who I am. It also made me build my walls a little bit higher and a little bit thicker to where only a few select people can get through. If you've never been homeless or never knew anybody personally that was homeless, you'll never understand it. You'll never understand it either until you experience it. I grew up pretty privileged. I never had to want for anything. All my needs were always taken care of, and all my wants too, majority of the time. Um, so I never had to worry about money, finances, anything. Um, I slept at 5-star hotels where they put mints or chocolates on the pillows. To a point where I was sleeping next to a dumpster on a piece of cardboard next to my best friend in life, which was Daryl. Uh, so I've experienced both sides of the coin in that aspect of things, and everything in a little bit of the in between those things as well. Anyways, peace, love, hugs, nugs, all that good stuff. Um, when you come back, my next video is going to be talking about San Antonio, Texas. Till then, I'm out.